Her name was Samya Stumo. She was 24 years old. She just landed her first real job, a public health analyst at a non-profit in Washington, D.C. She'd flown out of Boston the night before. Her family was the kind of family that ran a farm in western Massachusetts and read poetry at the dinner table. Her great-uncle was Ralph Nader. Her younger brother had died of cancer when she was 4. Her mother told her, before she left, "Text me when you land." On the morning of March 10, 2019, Samya stood in line at Bole International Airport in Ethiopia on a connection to Nairobi. She sent her mum a text. She wrote that she'd write again when she landed. She walked down the jet bridge. She took her seat in row 16, beside a Somali-American trucker from Minnesota. The plane took off at 8:38 a.m. 6 minutes later, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 carved a crater 32 feet deep into the Ethiopian highlands at 575 miles per hour. Everyone on board died. Samya's mother never got the second text. What she got instead, 3 weeks later, was her daughter's passport and her daughter's journal, both drenched in jet fuel. That was all that came home. Here's what almost nobody told the Stumo family at the funeral. At the exact moment, Samya was buckling her seatbelt. The men who built her airplane had spent $43 billion buying back their own stock instead of designing a safe one. 2 months earlier, after the first crash of an identical plane, Boeing's board had approved another $20 billion in buybacks, while the bodies were still being identified. This is the story of how Wall Street destroyed the lives of 346 people, how a single rule change in 1982 made it legal, and how to spot the next Boeing in 60 seconds. For most of the 20th century, Boeing was an engineering religion. The 707 launched the jet age. The 747 made international travel affordable for ordinary families. Boeing built the rockets that put Americans on the moon. The unofficial motto inside the Seattle plant was, "If it isn't Boeing, I'm not going." The company was run by engineers. The CEO had to be one. Every wing, every weld ran through people who knew that a quarter-inch mistake could kill 300 passengers. They had a phrase taped to the walls, "We don't ship junk." For 80 years, that culture made Boeing the most trusted manufacturer on Earth. And then, in 1997, Boeing bought a struggling competitor called McDonnell Douglas. On paper, Boeing was the buyer. In reality, McDonnell Douglas's executives took over. There's a joke in Seattle that's still told today. McDonnell Douglas bought Boeing with Boeing's money. The man at the center of that takeover was named Harry Stonecipher, a finance guy. He'd cut McDonnell Douglas to the bone, and now he was inside Boeing. In 2004, Stonecipher gave an interview to the Chicago Tribune. He said this, quote, "When people say I changed the culture of Boeing, that was the intent, so that it's run like a business rather than a great engineering firm." A great engineering firm, like that was the problem. In 2001, Boeing moved its headquarters from Seattle, where the planes were actually built, to Chicago, 1,700 miles away. The next CEO came from General Electric. The one after that came from General Electric. None of them had ever designed an airplane. Then, in 2010, Airbus announced a new fuel-efficient jet, the A320neo. Boeing panicked. Their own engineers wanted to design a new airplane from scratch. Boeing's own CFO said it would cost between $10 and $12 billion. The CEO, Jim McNerney, said no, it's too expensive and too slow. Instead, he chose the cheap option. McNerney told his engineers to bolt bigger, heavier engines onto the 50-year-old 737's frame. The new engines were so big they had to be mounted further forward on the wing, which made the airplane want to pitch up on takeoff, which is the kind of thing that can take down an airplane. To hide it, Boeing added a piece of secret software called MCAS. MCAS could push the nose of a 200,000-pound jet straight at the ground based on a single sensor. They didn't tell the pilots it existed, and they didn't put it in the manuals. Why? Because telling pilots would have required new training that cost the airlines money, and the airlines may switch from Boeing to Airbus, so Boeing hid it. And while they were hiding it, between 2013 and 2019, Boeing spent $43.4 billion buying back their own stock. That was 104% of their entire profit for those years. Every dollar of profit, plus billions more, handed to shareholders instead of spending on engineering. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta. MCAS activated on a faulty sensor, and the pilots fought it for 11 minutes. They lost. 189 people died, including a child and 2 infants. Inside Boeing, a senior manager named Ed Pearson had been screaming about exactly this. Pearson ran the production support team at the 737 factory in Renton, Washington. 4 months before Lion Air, in June 2018, he emailed the head of the 737 program. Frankly, right now, all my internal warning bells are going off, and for the first time in my life, I'm sorry to say that I'm hesitant about putting my family on a Boeing airplane. He begged them to shut down the factory. They ignored him. After Lion Air crashed, he begged again. He warned the general counsel. He warned the CEO and the board of directors. They ignored him again. And here's the part that should make every American sick. In December 2018, less than 2 months after Lion Air went into the Java Sea, Boeing's board of directors approved another $20 billion in stock buybacks, while 189 bodies were still being identified. 5 months later, Samya boarded Flight 302 when her parents flew to Ethiopia to find their daughter. All they brought home was that passport and that journal. The Stumos didn't grieve quietly. They filed the first lawsuit. They testified to Congress. They held up posters of all 346 victims in the hearing rooms until lawmakers had to look. Her mother ran for Congress. Ralph Nader, Samya's great-uncle, the man who took down General Motors in the 1960s, came out of retirement to fight Boeing. Boeing eventually paid more than $2.5 billion in fines. 2 CEOs were forced out, and the 737 MAX was grounded for 20 months, the longest grounding in US aviation history. But Samya is still dead. And so are 345 other people. Now, here's the thing you actually need to understand about why this happened. Because it's going to happen again at a different company, in a different industry, unless you can spot it. So let me make this simple. A stock buyback is when a company uses its own cash to buy its own shares off the stock market, and then it deletes them. Imagine a pizza cut into 10 slices. The company buys 2 slices back and throws them in a furnace. Now there are 8 slices left, but it's the same pizza. So each remaining slice is worth more. That's a buyback. The company gets smaller. The remaining shareholders get richer. No new technology or jobs were actually created, just a smaller pizza. Here's the wild part. This used to be illegal in America. From 1934 until 1982, buybacks were considered stock manipulation under federal securities law. Then, in November 1982, under SEC Chairman John Shad, the agency passed Rule 10b-18, a safe harbor that made buybacks legal as long as a company followed certain limits. Since then, US corporations have spent over $9 trillion buying back their own stock. Boeing alone has spent $68 billion on buybacks and dividends since 2010. That's enough money to design 2 new airplanes from scratch, twice over. And here's how you spot the next Boeing, the next ghost company, in 60 seconds. Pull up any public company's annual report, the 10K. It's free on the SEC's website. Find 2 numbers. The first is repurchases of common stock in the cash flow statement. The second is research and development in the income statement. Divide one by the other. If a company is spending more on buying back its own shares than on R&D, year after year, that company is eating its own future. It might look healthy on a stock chart. It is rotting on the inside. Between 2013 and 2019, leading up to the incident, Boeing spent $43 billion making its stock more valuable, and it cost 346 lives. The trade was made by men in Chicago who never had to look Samya's father in the eye, so that it's run like a business rather than a great engineering firm. That was the trade. That was always the trade. If this story taught you something, hit subscribe and watch how this airlines came down fast.